Let me ask you something that might surprise you. What if I told you that one of the most widely repeated pieces of health advice you've heard your entire life, get 8 hours of sleep every night, might not actually apply to you anymore? And what if I told you that the guilt, the worry, and the frustration you feel every single time you wake up at 5 in the morning or lie awake staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. might be completely unnecessary? What if your body isn't broken? What if it's just change? Because here's what I've seen over and over again in my work with older adults. People come to me exhausted, not always from lack of sleep, but from years of believing they're failing at something as basic and natural as rest. They've tried pills, they've tried routines, they've tried everything short of hypnosis. And the root of their suffering isn't always insomnia. It's the mismatch between what they think sleep should look like and what it actually looks like as we age. Today, I want to change that for you. I want to give you honest, clear, science-backed information about what sleep really looks like in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. What's normal, what's not, and what you can genuinely do to feel more rested, more energized, and more like yourself. No gimmicks, no fear-mongering, just real information delivered with the respect you deserve. So before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Do you feel like you're getting enough sleep these days? Are you waking up earlier than you'd like, or are you having trouble falling asleep in the first place? Maybe you sleep fine but still feel tired all day. Whatever your experience is, drop it in the comments below. Tell me what's going on with your sleep. Not only does it help me understand what you're dealing with, but I promise you, you're going to see your own experience reflected in someone else's comment. And knowing you're not alone in this matters more than you might think. Now let's get into it. I want to start with what I consider the most important thing I'll say in this entire video. The 8-hour rule was never meant to be a one-size-fits-all prescription for every human being at every stage of life. It was derived largely from studies done on younger adults, and it became cultural gospel in a way that the science never quite supported. When you look at the research, the large, well-designed studies, what you consistently find is that sleep needs are deeply individual. They change across the lifespan, and for most people over 60, somewhere between 7 and 8 hours is actually the sweet spot. But many older adults function beautifully on 6.5 to 7 hours of good quality sleep. And the emphasis, I cannot stress this enough, is on quality, not quantity. Think about it this way. Would you rather sleep 9 hours and wake up feeling groggy, stiff, and foggy? Or sleep 6.5 hours and wake up feeling sharp, rested, and ready to move? Your body would take the second option every time. And frankly, so would I. So why does sleep change as we age? What's actually happening biologically? Because once you understand the mechanism, you stop feeling like something is wrong with you, and you start working with your body instead of fighting it. Here's what changes. As we get older, our circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour clock that governs when we feel sleepy and when we feel awake, shifts earlier. This is called a circadian phase advance. You naturally start feeling sleepy earlier in the evening, and you naturally wake up earlier in the morning. This isn't insomnia. It's a predictable, normal shift documented in hundreds of studies. If you're going to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, your body isn't malfunctioning. It's operating on its new internal schedule. The second major change involves sleep architecture, the pattern and structure of sleep across the night. When you're young, you spend substantial time in deep, slow-wave sleep, the most physically restorative phase. As we age, that proportion decreases naturally. You spend less time in the deepest stages and more in lighter sleep, which means you're more easily woken by sounds, temperature changes, or the need to use the bathroom. This isn't sleeping poorly, it's sleeping differently. The third change is sleep continuity. Older adults often sleep more fragmentedly than younger people, waking briefly several times throughout the night. These awakenings are often so brief people don't remember them. When they do remember, they sometimes panic. I woke up 3 times last night. But if your total sleep time was adequate and you felt reasonably rested in the morning, those brief awakenings are normal. The fourth change involves melatonin. The hormone your brain produces in response to darkness, which signals it's time to sleep, decreases with age. The brain's master clock becomes less sensitive, and the pineal gland becomes slightly less active. This means it can take longer to feel sleepy after dark, which is why many older adults find themselves lying in bed waiting to fall asleep even when genuinely tired. Not because something is deeply wrong, but because the biological machinery of sleep initiation runs a little more slowly now. None of these changes are things to fear, but they do mean your approach to sleep needs to evolve with your biology. You can't treat your sleep in your 70s the same way you treated it in your 30s and expect the same results. Understanding this isn't discouraging, it's liberating, because it means you can start adapting instead of resisting. So what does healthy sleep actually look like for someone over 60? Let me paint you a real picture. A healthy, well-rested older adult typically falls asleep within about 20 to 30 minutes of going to bed. They sleep for somewhere between 6 and 8 hours total, though this varies considerably from person to person. They may wake briefly during the night, once, twice, maybe 3 times, but fall back asleep without too much difficulty. They wake up naturally, often earlier than they used to, and they feel reasonably alert within about 30 minutes of getting up. They don't feel the desperate, crushing need to nap in the middle of the day every single day, though an afternoon rest of 20 to 30 minutes is completely normal and, for many people, genuinely beneficial. That's what healthy sleep looks like. Notice that it doesn't say 8 consecutive uninterrupted hours every single night. Notice that it doesn't say never wake up before 6 a.m. Notice that it doesn't say always feel completely energized the moment you open your eyes. Healthy sleep, especially in the second half of life, looks quieter and softer than what movies and magazines sell us. Now let me talk about something I consider one of the most underappreciated sleep disruptors in older adults, and that's anxiety about sleep itself. There's a term for this: orthosomnia, the paradoxical condition of being so concerned about getting good sleep that the worry itself prevents you from sleeping. When you lie down and your mind starts calculating, it's 11 p.m., I need to be up at 6, that's only 7 hours, but it took me 30 minutes to fall asleep last night, so really it'll be 6.5. That's not enough. Your heart rate rises, your mind races, and sleep moves further away. The monitoring, the calculating, the dread creates physiological arousal that is incompatible with sleep. This pattern is incredibly common, and it's fixable. But it requires moving from a controlling stance to a softer, more trusting one, and I'll come back to exactly how in a few minutes. First, though, I want to address the health headlines honestly, because you've probably seen them. Poor sleep linked to dementia. Sleep deprivation increases risk of heart disease. And yes, chronic sleep deprivation is genuinely harmful. It's associated with increased inflammation, impaired cognitive function, weakened immune response, and elevated cardiovascular risk. That's real. But here's what those headlines consistently fail to tell you. The definition of poor sleep in most of those studies is consistently getting 5 hours or fewer. Not waking up at 5 in the morning. Not getting 6.5 hours because that's what your body needs now. Chronic, profound sleep restriction is what drives those risks. And worrying excessively about getting exactly 8 hours, when that worry is disrupting the sleep you're actually getting, is far more harmful than peacefully sleeping 7 hours and waking up feeling rested. Let me now walk through the things that genuinely do impair sleep quality in older adults, because understanding these gives you a real roadmap for improvement. The first is sleep apnea, one of the most underdiagnosed conditions I've encountered in older adults, and one of the most impactful when it comes to sleep quality. Sleep apnea occurs when the airway repeatedly collapses during sleep, causing brief breathing cessations that fragment sleep dozens or hundreds of times per night. People with sleep apnea rarely feel genuinely rested, no matter how many hours they spend in bed. They wake up with headaches, feel tired all day, often snore loudly, and their bed partners may notice them stopping breathing briefly during the night. Sleep apnea becomes more common with age, and it is eminently treatable. If you've never been evaluated for it, and you consistently feel unrefreshed despite adequate time in bed, please talk to your doctor about a sleep study. The right treatment can be genuinely life-changing. The second major disruptor is pain. Chronic pain, arthritis, back problems, joint pain, neuropathy. is extraordinarily common in older adults, and it is one of the most reliably sleep-disrupting conditions there is. When your hip aches or your back spasms in the early morning hours, staying asleep becomes nearly impossible. And poor sleep, in turn, increases pain sensitivity, creating a vicious cycle. If pain is keeping you awake, please have a real conversation with your doctor about it. There are position adjustments, physical therapy approaches designed specifically to reduce nighttime pain, and in some cases, appropriately timed medications that can make a meaningful difference. Don't just suffer through it and assume it's inevitable. The third major factor is medications. Certain blood pressure medications, particularly beta blockers, can suppress melatonin production and cause early waking or vivid dreams. Diuretics taken too late in the day mean you're up 3 or 4 times to use the bathroom. Some antidepressants are activating and interfere with sleep onset. Even some over-the-counter remedies can disrupt sleep in ways people don't expect. If your sleep problems seem to start around the time a new medication was introduced, that conversation with whoever manages your medications is absolutely worth having. Sometimes a simple timing adjustment, taking a diuretic in the morning instead of the evening, can make a remarkable difference without any change to your treatment plan. The fourth factor is nocturia, waking up to urinate during the night. This is one of the most common sleep disruptions in adults over 60, caused by enlarged prostate, overactive bladder, certain medications, drinking fluids too close to bedtime, or in some cases, sleep apnea. If you're waking up more than twice a night to use the bathroom, it's worth discussing with your doctor, because there are often highly effective treatments available. The fifth factor is mental health, specifically anxiety and depression. Both are more common in older adults than many people realize, and both are profoundly disruptive to sleep. Depression often causes early morning awakening, waking at 3 or 4 a.m. and being unable to fall back asleep, often with a flood of dark or worried thoughts. Anxiety causes difficulty falling asleep, a racing mind, and hypervigilance through the night. If this sounds familiar, please don't dismiss it as just sleep problems. You may be experiencing a treatable mental health condition that's expressing itself through your sleep. Getting help for the underlying emotional state is often the single most effective thing you can do for your sleep quality. Now let's talk about what you can actually do, because this isn't just an information session. I want you to leave here with practical, usable tools that you can start implementing today. Let's start with light, because it's probably the most powerful regulator of your circadian rhythm that exists. When you expose your eyes to bright, natural light in the morning, ideally within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, you're sending a powerful signal to your biological clock that it's day, which in turn makes the onset of sleep hormones that evening more predictable and reliable. Getting outside in the morning, even just for 10 to 15 minutes, or sitting by a bright window while you have your coffee, can make a noticeable difference to how easily you fall asleep that night. And reducing your exposure to bright artificial light, especially screens, in the 2 hours before bed, helps your brain shift into sleep mode more smoothly. Temperature matters too. Your core body temperature needs to drop slightly for sleep to initiate and maintain, and your sleeping environment plays a big role. Most sleep researchers recommend a bedroom temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, cooler than most people keep their homes. Even small adjustments like a lighter blanket or a fan on low can make a meaningful difference. Consistency is probably the single most powerful behavioral intervention for sleep. Going to bed and waking up at approximately the same time every day, including weekends and nights when you didn't sleep well, is what keeps your circadian rhythm calibrated. Sleeping in on weekends to catch up actually makes sleep worse by shifting your rhythm and making the following week harder. Staying in bed extra long after a bad night reinforces the association between your bed and wakefulness. Consistency is the anchor. How you use your bed matters. There's a principle in sleep medicine called stimulus control. Your bed should be associated exclusively with sleep. Not reading, not watching television, not scrolling your phone, not lying there worrying. The more activities you do in bed while awake, the weaker your brain's automatic association between bed and sleep becomes. If you've been reading in bed for decades, this might feel like a big change. But if sleep is currently a struggle, Try reading in a comfortable chair in low light before bed, then moving to bed when you're genuinely sleepy. Give it 2 weeks. What you consume, and when, has a real and measurable impact on sleep. Caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 7 hours, which means if you have a cup of coffee at 2 p.m., about half of that caffeine is still in your system at 7 or 8 in the evening. And caffeine sensitivity increases with age. Many older adults find they can no longer tolerate afternoon coffee, even if they did so for decades without any apparent effect. If you're having any trouble falling asleep, cutting off all caffeine after noon is a simple, zero-cost experiment worth trying. Alcohol is another one worth discussing honestly. Many people use a glass of wine or a nightcap to help them relax in the evening. And it works, initially. Alcohol speeds up sleep onset, but as your body metabolizes the alcohol across the night, it produces a rebound activating effect in the second half. This is why people who drink in the evening often sleep fine for the first few hours and then wake at 2 or 3 a.m. and can't fall back asleep. Alcohol also suppresses REM sleep in the first part of the night, reducing the quality of the sleep even when you're technically unconscious. I'm not saying never have a glass of wine. I'm saying that if you're having sleep problems and you're drinking regularly in the evenings, it's worth honestly examining whether the two are connected. Regular physical activity is one of the most effective sleep interventions in existence, and it gets dramatically underprescribed. Aerobic exercise, walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, whatever form of movement you genuinely enjoy, promotes adenosine, the sleep pressure chemical that drives the desire to sleep at night. It reduces anxiety through the regulation of stress hormones, improves mood, and helps anchor your circadian rhythm. Morning or early afternoon exercise tends to be most beneficial for sleep, but even evening exercise is better than no exercise. If an evening walk is the only walk you'll take, please take the walk. On napping. Napping is normal, and for many older adults, genuinely beneficial. A short nap of 20 to 30 minutes in the early afternoon, ideally before 3 p.m., can restore alertness and improve mood without significantly disrupting nighttime sleep. The problems arise when naps are too long or too late in the day. A long or late nap draws down on your sleep pressure, and you'll pay for it at bedtime. Short nap before 3 p.m.? Usually fine. 2-hour nap at 5 in the evening? That's going to cost you tonight. Now I want to talk about what I truly believe is the most transformative shift you can make in your relationship with sleep, and it's entirely psychological. Many of you are approaching sleep as a performance, something you either succeed or fail at. When you don't sleep well, you experience it as failure, and that failure creates stress, and that stress creates physiological arousal, and that arousal prevents sleep. It's a self-reinforcing loop. And because you're a capable, conscientious person who cares about your health, you try hard. You monitor your sleep. You track it, maybe on a fitness device. You calculate your hours. You plan your evenings around optimizing your sleep. And paradoxically, all of that trying makes sleep harder, not easier. Here's the counterintuitive truth. You cannot force yourself to sleep. Sleep is not something you do. It's something that happens to you when the conditions are right and when you get out of its way. The more you try to control it, the more elusive it becomes. When your body perceives the manufactured threat of, "I might not sleep enough tonight," it releases cortisol and adrenaline, raises your heart rate, and heightens alertness. These are the precise opposite of what you need to fall asleep. Cognitive reframing looks like this in practice. Going to bed without expectations. You're not going to sleep, you're going to rest, and you're giving your body the opportunity to sleep. Accepting waking in the night as normal rather than catastrophic. I'm awake. That's okay. I'll rest here quietly. My body knows what to do. Getting out of bed if you've been awake for more than 20 minutes and doing something quiet and pleasant in dim light until you feel genuinely sleepy again. Not because you failed at sleeping, but because you're helping your body build more sleep pressure before trying again. Releasing your grip on the outcome and trusting the process. This approach, when practiced consistently, has the power to break cycles of insomnia that have persisted for years. I want to say something directly to the people in this audience who are truly struggling, who have been dealing with serious, chronic insomnia for months or years, who feel desperate and exhausted and hopeless about sleep. I hear you. I see you. And I want you to know that there is a highly effective, evidence-based treatment for chronic insomnia that most people have never heard of. And it doesn't involve medication. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI, and it is the first-line treatment recommended by sleep medicine specialists worldwide, above and beyond sleeping pills. It's a structured program, typically 6 to 8 sessions, that addresses the thoughts, behaviors, and habits that perpetuate insomnia. Large-scale clinical trials have shown that CBTI produces more durable improvements than medication, with no side effects. If you have access to a healthcare provider, please ask specifically about CBTI. Digital CBTI programs have also been validated in research and are widely accessible. This is the gold standard for chronic insomnia, and yet most people have never heard of it. Please spread the word. I also want to address melatonin briefly, because it's widely used and widely misunderstood. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It's a hormone that signals your body to prepare for sleep, shifting your circadian rhythm rather than sedating you. For older adults whose natural melatonin production has decreased, it can be genuinely helpful. But more is not better. Research consistently shows that doses as low as 0.5 milligrams are as effective as the 3 to 10 milligram doses sold in most pharmacies. If melatonin doesn't seem to be helping you, the dose may simply be too high. Take it 30 to 60 minutes before your intended sleep time, in low light, and always discuss with your doctor before starting any supplement. Let me address cognitive health directly, because I know the headlines about sleep and dementia generate real anxiety. Yes, there is meaningful research suggesting that chronic sleep deprivation is associated with increased risk of cognitive decline, and the proposed mechanism, involving the brain's waste clearance system flushing out proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease during deep sleep, is genuinely important science. But please put it in proper perspective. The relationship is correlational, not proven definitively causal. Sleep disruption is itself one of the earliest symptoms of Alzheimer's pathology, meaning the relationship likely runs in both directions. And the sleep patterns associated with elevated risk are severe and chronic, not the natural early waking or lighter sleep of a healthy older adult. Don't lie awake worrying about whether your sleep is increasing your dementia risk. The worry is more harmful than the sleep variation. What genuinely helps is pursuing good sleep quality alongside regular physical activity, social connection, mental engagement, and cardiovascular health. Together, those are what the evidence supports. I want to take a moment to acknowledge caregivers, because many of you watching are caring for a spouse or family member whose needs interrupt your sleep repeatedly through the night. Your sleep is being disrupted not by a biological sleep disorder, but by the exhausting demands of love. Caregivers who are chronically sleep-deprived are at significantly elevated risk for their own health problems and ultimately provide less effective care when exhaustion depletes their reserves. If this is you, please explore respite care options, speak honestly with your healthcare provider about your own well-being, and ask for help. Protecting your sleep is not selfish. It is a health necessity and an act of service to the person you're caring for. Let me say something about the role of social connection in sleep quality, because it matters more than most people realize. Loneliness and social isolation are strongly associated with poor sleep in older adults. More fragmented sleep, more nighttime awakenings, less restorative rest. Loneliness activates threat detection circuits in the brain, and that hypervigilance doesn't fully switch off at night. Conversely, people who have strong social connections, meaningful daily interactions, and a clear sense of purpose tend to sleep better. A life that has structure, meaning, and genuine pleasure in it tends to produce bodies and minds that rest well. Sleep is woven into everything: your relationships, your purpose, your activity level, your emotional state. So let me bring this together for you now. Let me tell you clearly what I want you to take from this video. Sleep changes as you age. That is not a flaw in your design. It is a biological reality that reflects the natural evolution of your nervous system, your hormones, and your circadian rhythm. Waking earlier, having lighter sleep, taking longer to fall asleep, waking occasionally in the night. These are normal aspects of sleep in the second half of life, not signs that something is broken or that you are failing. You almost certainly do not need exactly 8 hours of sleep. Most healthy older adults do well on 6 to 8 hours of good quality sleep, and many function beautifully on the lower end of that range. What matters far more than the number is the quality, how rested you feel, how well you function during the day, whether you can get through your day without fighting desperate sleepiness. There are real, treatable causes of poor sleep in older adults: sleep apnea, pain, medications, nocturia, anxiety, depression. If your sleep is genuinely impaired in ways that affect your daily functioning, please don't just accept it as the price of getting older. Talk to your doctor. Mention it specifically, in those words. My sleep quality is poor and it's affecting how I feel during the day. You deserve that conversation, and you deserve real answers. The most powerful behavioral things you can do for your sleep are: get natural light every morning. Keep a consistent sleep and wake schedule 7 days a week. Use your bed only for sleep. Reduce caffeine after noon. Limit evening alcohol. And get regular physical activity. These are not glamorous interventions, but the research behind them is robust, and the results are real. If you have chronic insomnia, ask about cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It works better than sleeping pills over the long term, has no side effects, and is available in both in-person and digital formats. It may be the most important piece of information in this entire video. Let go of the 8-hour myth. The guilt and anxiety you carry about not sleeping enough is costing you more than a few missing minutes of sleep ever could. Trust your body. Give it good conditions, consistent timing, physical activity, and freedom from the tyranny of the clock. And then let it do what it knows how to do. And finally, if you are struggling, if you feel exhausted and defeated by your sleep, I want you to hear me clearly. This is not your fault. You are not failing, and it is not hopeless. Sleep problems in older adults are among the most common and the most successfully treated challenges in all of medicine. You have options, you have resources, and you have taken a meaningful step today just by watching this, because understanding what is actually happening in your body is the foundation of everything else. I'd love for you to tell me in the comments, what's one thing from this video that shifted something for you? Or what question do you still have that I didn't fully answer? I read every comment and I will answer as many as I possibly can, because that conversation matters to me. If this video helped you, please consider sharing it with someone you care about who might be struggling with sleep. You might be giving them something they've been looking for a very long time. And if you haven't already subscribed, I'd be honored to have you join this community, because the questions you bring, the experiences you share, and the conversations we have here are what make this work genuinely meaningful. Take good care of yourself, rest well, and I'll see you in the next one.